Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Six Clinical Questions. I'm Bevin Clare, and I'll be your host. Today, we have the joy to speak with clinical herbalist Andrew Bentley. I've known Andrew on and off for many years, and we both float around in those clinical herbalism circles. And I've always been amazed at his dedication to clinical herbalism as a multi-generational herbalist and his sense of place. When I think Kentucky, I think of Andrew Bentley, where he has his full-time clinical practice. I also love Andrew's kind of blend of old and new, and I think you'll find that today's interview will explore that a little bit more. So, welcome to the show, Andrew. I'm so glad that you could participate. And I wanted to start for our first question. It would be great if you could tell us about your clinical practice. Share a quick overview of your practice and the work that you do as an herbalist. What does it really look like? Our audience loves to hear about how long you've been practicing, how many clients you typically see, how that flow works, and what your focus is on as a clinical herbalist. So we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Hi, Bevin. Thanks for having me. So I'm going to show you around the clinic a little bit, and then I'm going to talk some about what I do in the general course of my practice. So in the front here, I have the waiting room, which is pretty unremarkable. I try not to have people actually wait in this room together. I try to have people arranged so that someone leaves before the next person gets here. And then through this doorway, this is my treatment room where I do the majority of my clinical work. And a lot of the herbs that I use are in here, especially the ones I use most frequently. This is Aoife's workspace. Aoife makes most of the medicines for the practice. And then back here we have the classroom. I am doing a year-long herbal course that's called Herbalism from the Ground Up. It meets on Tuesday nights. And through here we have a little utility room and then a laboratory, which I use when I need to do some sort of assessment that might involve observing things that I can't see just with my naked eyes. So when someone comes and sees me, just have them sit in the room with me. I look at them, I talk to them, and I try and get an idea of which structures and functions in their body are working the way they need to be and which ones could use some additional support from herbal remedies and make things up for them. Typically, I see about 5 people a day. Sometimes it's a little more than that, sometimes it's a little less than that, but that's kind of the general guideline I go by. I schedule people so that there are gaps between them, both for the sake of privacy and so that if someone has an urgent need to get in to see me, there are spaces in which I could squeeze them in. And let's see, I've been doing this for a little over 30 years. My family has been doing this for some hundreds of years now, and it's a tradition, and it's also something that is helping to move herbal medicine in the world forward, I think, by just practicing. And when I got started practicing, there were not a whole lot of herbalists practicing in the country back in the 90s, and so it's really been a process of getting to help redefine it as a profession and also to carry on what people have been doing since the beginning of human history.
Thanks for your answer, Andrew. For our next question, let's talk about plants. So, what is a plant you find yourself using a lot recently that you really connect to? And if you could tell us a little bit about how you like to use it, why you think it's used so often by you, and any other, tips, recipes that you'd love to share so we can understand that plant a little better.
I wanted to choose something unusual for this one. So what I'd like to talk about is Paruta Lykan. And this is a little sample of it in a petri dish. This grows on lots of different kinds of trees. It will also grow on rocks. Everything that I use in my practice I gather from trees in the Rosaceae family. So Paruta, as a lichen, is a symbiont consisting of a fungus and some algal cells that are growing in combination with that to form a singular functional organism. And so they contain a lot of the immunopolysaccharides that support the immune system that you would find in other fungi. They also contain some substances that you would usually find in algae and other plants. And they contain some things that you would only find in other lichens. I want to show you the liquid extract of this lichen. So this is the vivid yellowish orangish color that comes out of the lichen, and then you can see this is the greenish gray color of the lichen itself. And I think that's fascinating. So this is a lichen that it's a genus of lichens that has a worldwide distribution. They're very common. They've been used in Ayurveda, they've been used in traditional Chinese medicine, and they've been used in traditional medicine in North America and in Europe as well. So even though they're not really well known, they do have a long history of use. There's been a fair bit of research into the compounds they contain, and there is a long clinical history of using them. This one has really broad activity against a lot of different pathogens, and it's also supporting to the immune system, and it also acts as a diuretic. And so between all of those things, it has a lot of different functions that it can support in the body. It also contains this orangish substance, which is an antihistamine called lawsone. And so that actually has some effects against allergies. So that's something that you may not have encountered before, but you've probably seen in your environment. And it's something that is kind of readily available from the environment, from nature, but is not really an item of commerce to any great extent right now.
One of the questions that everybody always wants to know about, but doesn't always want to ask, is about money. Let's talk about money and structure. How do you charge? What is your philosophy on money in your herbal practice? And how do you balance your desire to serve your community with your need to make a living? We know all of those things can be challenging, and I'd love to hear about how you've gotten to this point with your money and structure conversations.
So as far as money goes, I charge people for an initial office visit. That's $50 for the office visit itself. If someone is coming in for a follow-up or any visit other than their initial office visit, that's $35. And then I dispense remedies for people in 2 ounce for $25, 4 ounce for $50, or 8 ounce for $100. And those prices are the same as they were 20 years ago. And if I were starting now, they would be higher. But those are the prices that I charge for things. And I also do not turn anybody away for lack of funds. So that's a really important thing to my practice and to my sense of ethics in as being an herbalist, is that I want this to be as accessible as possible. And so if someone cannot pay the full price, they can pay later, they can pay never, they can barter, they can tell me what price works for them and pay that, or quite often they can pay nothing at all. And I don't do any sort of a sliding scale where I try to make people prove, that they're worthy of a reduced cost or anything like that, because that's just another barrier to access. It's just another hoop to jump through, and I really don't think that it would help me in any material way. I do not mean this to be necessarily a blueprint for everybody or anything like that. This is what works for me and what has been working for me, but it is also traditional in my tradition. I have, let's see, I have here with me this book. This is something that was published by one of my ancestors in the 1600s. And he was a refugee from Ireland. Ireland at the time was being decimated by Oliver Cromwell and his armies. And so this person, after their kind of tribal society that they lived in had been pretty well destroyed. They fled to Bristol and were living there as refugees. And he was practicing as a healer in that situation. And even though he had lost everything, he was still treating people who couldn't afford it without charging them. And so this is something that my ancestors have done under far greater duress than what I'm under. And so it would feel like it would feel like a dereliction of duty for me to do anything else. So I do. Usually people pay. I don't really feel like people taking advantage of that is a big problem. I think that people are fairly conscientious about it, and they realize that I'm a member of the community, that I'm not wealthy, anything like that. That I'm just a working person doing my best to get by, and so people respect that. And yeah, it hasn't really been an issue. So that's how I do it, and I may raise those prices at some point because, like I said, they're from a long time ago. But even at that rate, I'm able to make a decent living as an herbalist in the community that I'm in. It helps that here in Kentucky we kind of have a living tradition of herbal medicine, and it's not really a new thing for a lot of people. It's something that a lot of the older generations have grown up using, and then it became, of course, popular again in the late 20th century. And so it's not something that ever really went completely away here. It's something that's fairly familiar to people, and that's probably made it a lot easier. But that's essentially how I structure the financial side of things and how I charge for things. And I would say additionally that over the course of establishing my practice, I didn't take on debt to start things. I just kind of started as a very low budget operation, and took on premises after I'd been seeing people for years, and things like that. So it's kind of been a very slow organic growth to the situation that I'm in now, and so that's the way I've done things.
Okay, Andrew, it's secret sauce time. So, what is your secret sauce to becoming successful as a clinical herbalist? For those aspiring clinicians out there, what advice do you have for them? And I also would love it if you'd bring in your sidekick, because I have met your sidekick and I think that she's pretty awesome. So, tell us a little bit about how that all developed, and about that secret sauce of yours.
Okay, so as far as secrets to success goes, I don't know that what I have to say is exactly a secret, since I tell anybody who will listen, but I do feel like I have to say before I start that a lot of the things that have helped me are not necessarily reproducible. A lot of things have been just the circumstances of the time and things like that when I got started. But one thing that I do want to talk about that I feel is really important is I feel that one of the greatest sources of ability for an herbalist is from their connection with the plants and their connection with the plant communities that live where they live and that they work with. And so in my practice, I try to have everything, all phases of the practice involved from the time that the plant is growing in the ground until the time that I am giving a prepared medicine to a patient. So that would include harvesting the plant, but also even preliminary to that, that would include scouting for and stewarding stands of plants. So I have stands of ginseng and partridge berry and several other plants that I've worked with for decades from the same small area of plants that I've gathered from the same stand and then helped to foster the health of that stand so that it continues providing medicine. so that it's not just a matter of taking, it's a matter of having a symbiotic relationship with the plant community and with the different species of plants and with the land that they grow in. And so that to me is something that I feel like there needs to be more awareness of among people who are new to herbalism. That is something that maybe is not just part of the culture that most of us are raised in, and that needs to be learned, and that can be a really important and really potent addition to someone's practice as an herbalist. Aoife, tell us about what you have to say.
I would say the thing I have heard that is the most important my entire life growing up is bedside manner, because something that draws a lot of people to our business and to herbalism in general is that, you know, sometimes they get more care and attention to detail than they would with typical healthcare. So, you know, really listening to people and having good bedside manner and emotional intelligence is very important, you know, when treating their ailments.
I always appreciate how herbs can be so unique and varied in their action. Will you share about a time when herbs surprised you in your clinical work? Something you weren't expecting, something that really stands out as a memory. Tell us your story.
One time that herbs really surprised me was when I found out how well a tincture of vanilla, just like the pure vanilla extract that a lot of people would keep in their kitchen, how well that works as a topical pain reliever for burns. The first time I ever tried that, I had burned myself and it hurt pretty bad. You know, it was just a regular cooking burn. I'd reached into the oven and touched my wrist to something hot, and someone told me that if I put the vanilla on that it would take the pain away. And it worked so quickly and so efficiently that I was really just amazed. And since then, I've used it a lot in the clinic, and especially in the mobile clinic when we're doing first aid type things for festivals. We make a combination of fresh aloe juice and vanilla extract, and it's an amazing thing for burns. And it works well for sunburns, which is usually what we're working with. But we've also done some first aid for people who are playing with fire, doing spinning fire and doing tricks with it and so forth. And it works really well for the pain. The vanilla works really well for the pain, and the aloe helps to do some soothing and healing as well. And so now I'm used to seeing that, but the first time that I ever saw that, I was just shocked at how well it worked.
I'm sure everybody today has been really inspired by what you've shared. Will you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you and find more about your work? If you have any classes, websites, anything like that, or if they should hop in the car and drive to Louisville to see you there. Thanks, Andrew.
If anybody wants to know more about me, they can find lots of content that I've made on social media, on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube under the name Clinical Herbalist. And I also have a website, which is KentuckyHerbalist.com.
Thanks, Andrew, for taking the time to share all of that with us. I learned a few hot tips, especially when to grab that bottle of vanilla extract I have in my kitchen. Unfortunately, I'm sure I'll have a need for this at some point, and I definitely want to check it out and report back. I'll be letting you know how any burn care goes with vanilla extract. I also wanted to thank you for just reminding us about the strength of knowing our plant community, no matter where we are, whether it's urban or rural or wherever we are in the world. We can understand and know our plant community, and from the very beginning until the clinical moment. And I love that reminder. it was also wonderful to have Aoife there and for them to share a little bit there. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more. It's just awesome that you have a kid who is so involved in the field as well. So thanks, Aoife, for making a guest appearance. And so thanks, Andrew. And I look forward to seeing who comes on the show next time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Hope you found out some new clinical tidbits that will be useful for you. Bye.